Hey guys, Mathel here once again, and today the Content Update 2.6 Balance Changes or Development Manifesto just came out, and there's quite a few changes coming in for 2.6 as it seems, before the really big stuff comes out for 3.0. So in this update, they're just outlining some of the changes that are happening to the passive tree, to some unique items, some elemental conversion, area of effect, some skills, and of course threshold jewels. And I'm going to go over it fairly quickly. I'll try to be fairly quick about it and highlight some of the more important stuff, what it means and what it means to me. So we'll start with improvements to the passive tree. Passive tree has been pretty stagnant for like almost a year or something. Not much has changed there, so this is pretty good stuff that stuff's being changed, and it's something we're all looking forward to for sure. So what's happening so far is some physical to cold conversion has been added to the passive tree near the ranger area. This allows for skills like Ice Shot and Frostblades to have more conversion to cold than ever before. So chances are somewhere around this area there's going to be some extra sort of elemental damage, rather than just, this one over here. When you're usually making an elemental build, that's all you're grabbing. This cold one's pretty fucking useless, but there might be more coming around here, which is pretty good stuff. It does enable some much more elemental damage in that side of the tree, rather than just Shadow and Witch areas currently, and Templar, I suppose. A new weapon elemental damage cluster has been added to the passive tree near Ranger. This now allows for dexterity aligned characters. That's basically what I just went over. The area between Shadow and Ranger has been made more efficient and less restrictive, while also improving the efficiency of clusters in that section of the tree. So just between Ranger and Shadow, a lot of these are kind of crap and they feel pretty bad to maneuver around. So, there might be updates to some of the passes themselves or just the travel itself. So that's fine. Thick Skin Cluster now attaches to the outside perimeter. If you missed that, it was tweeted earlier. And basically, the bottom of the tree will now have a connection there and makes it slightly nicer to travel to. Mana has been added behind Mind Over Matter and allowing for those builds to be better than ever before. So not many people use this these days, but Mind Over Matter, there'll be extra mana behind it. Depends on how significant it is as to how good that change will be. It could be a lot more mana, could be barely anything. Some Claw, Staff, and Sword passives have received some special attention and should now be more powerful overall. So currently there's quite a lot of Claw stuff here, up there, and the Sword stuff here and here, and a bunch of Staff stuff over here and there. The Staff stuff, it's okay. I don't think it's too bad in general, but maybe more of it could be general for, spell stuff too, so that could be good. The Sword stuff I think is fine for the most part, especially the crit stuff over here. They're pretty good nodes, and some of these are actually pretty good too. The Claw stuff definitely needs some help, as we all know, so we'll see what comes of that, but should be good stuff. The Vitality Void and Spirit Void cluster near the Duelist starting area that grants life and mana leech to attack damage has been rearranged and is now also attached to the outside perimeter path. So what we're looking at is this over here, all the elemental and chaos sort of leech that we quite often grab in our builds should be connected from down here, which is really good news. That might make traveling a lot nicer around these sorts of areas, and potentially some of it will be rearranged so there's less of these mana ones, I would imagine, because they are very much overkill, and maybe this hybrid one will go away, or maybe they'll stuff more of them into hybrid, but I'm excited to see what happens with that. Sword Critical Cluster has been made part of the Ranger's large exterior sword cluster. The other part of the sword cluster has been significantly reworked to grant more power. So we are talking about the ones I just mentioned. This over here will be combined over here, and maybe the other half of it will also be better. So that's also pretty good stuff. Leech effects in the shadow area of the tree now leech from all attack damage, not just physical attack. So what we're looking at is this over here. Currently 0.4 Fizz attack damage leeched as life, and this up here is 0.4 Fizz attack leeched as mana. Currently pretty much no one ever grabs this because it's damn useless, and a lot of life builds will grab this, but it's now general leech. It's not very much, but it does help, so it's pretty damn good stuff, and that's a really nice change, and it's good that this one becomes general leech. Because you might actually grab it when you're swinging past here instead of being forced to go down here for elemental builds, which you never would do. So you'd be forced to get more creative with your mana resolutions, which isn't a big deal anyway. But this being General Leech is very nice indeed. Not the biggest deal in the world, but pretty damn good. I did miss this one here. Master Fletcher bow cluster between Ranger and Duelist has been removed, and the Avatar of the Hunt cluster has been moved to its old location. I personally can't remember what the old location of Avatar of the Hunt is, but that's this one here, and this one here was removed. It's shit, no one ever took it, so that's fine, I guess. Lightning Cluster's Arcing Blows and Crackling Speed have been combined, and Arcing Speed has been improved. So Arcing Blows, Crackling Speed, we are talking about these over here. Arcing Blows, Crackling Speed, they've been combined, they're now sexy. That's pretty damn good. This is already not too bad. Chances are you wouldn't usually take it on a lightning build though, and this is really good for lightning weapon based builds, of which there are currently few, so combining them is pretty damn nice. Master of Force, Physical Cluster in Scion area, and Ash, Frost, and Storm, the Elemental Cluster in Scion area, now grant a small value of reduced reflect damage taken of their type, which is pretty good. We're talking about this one here, Master of Force. No one ever takes it right now. It's pretty fucking terrible. And Ash, Frost, and Storm. No one takes it. It's pretty fucking terrible. So depending on how much they give you for reduced reflect, it could be really nice and well worth taking in some builds, especially, for example, Inquisitors for this, and probably Assassins for this sort of stuff. So it could be really good. I imagine it's going to be anywhere from like 2 to 5% reduced reflect, so it might not be very substantial. We'll have to wait and see. And many other changes are going to be made to pathing, positioning, and values to improve underused passive skills. That's really good, so this will shake up the passive tree quite a bit, how you use it, how you path, and that's exciting stuff. So, they'll be figuring out the most efficient routes and how to build builds again pretty soon, so that's very nice. Elemental Conversion. So what they're saying here is that Pyre and Call of Brotherhood are way too good and way too easy to convert all of your shit right now. So they're going to be nerfed, and some other stuff may happen as well in the future. So Pyre, Call of Brotherhood will be one of the things that get slightly reduced, and you've also made it easier to convert some physical to elemental for some attack skills. Frostblade and Ice Shot now have 60% Fizz to Cold conversion instead of 40%, and Wild Strike now converts 100% of Fizz to a random element. So that's good, I suppose. It's not really going to shake too much up just yet, I don't think, but that is certainly good. It means you can get a lot more cold damage, and inevitably when double dipping goes the way of Dinosaur, for Ignite and probably Chaos, then things like Cold and Lightning might make a stronger comeback, and at that point it will be pretty relevant. There's going to be a unique item rebalance, so a lot of the uniques, they say over 100 uniques have been rebalanced, so a lot of the uniques you currently find through leveling are pretty shit and unusable, very niche scenarios to ever use them. They're going to be rebalanced so that they're going to be much more usable, and that they're going to try and make it so you rarely find an item that can't be used at some stage of the game, whether it's for leveling or for specific skills or whatever. So that's pretty good stuff. It means hopefully whenever you find a unique, especially when going through the game your first few times, you'll find stuff that's actually relevant to the game and being able to play and upgrade your character. So that's good. One-hand weapon damage and weapon implicits. So they're saying that they currently see very little use in one-hand weapons that aren't daggers, and that's for obvious reasons. So they're going to be changing things up and making the other base types a lot better, and daggers slightly less good. So daggers, for starters, the implicits are going to go from 40, 60, and 80% increased crit as their implicits to 30, 40, and 50, so that you're not strictly going for the 80s always as caster daggers, and instead maybe going for some of the lesser values, and so that all the others are slightly nerfed. That's probably, it's not necessarily going to deter you from using caster daggers at all, but it means you'll just be picking whichever one you want more or less, and not necessarily the 80%. And otherwise it shouldn't be a big deal, I don't think. Depends on how buffed the other weapons get. They've also made a slight buff by changing low-level claws from their Life Leech implicits to life gain on hit, because Life Leech sucks a lot at lower levels when you don't have much damage, so that's a nice change. Marikath Claw weapons, so that's the Double, Twin, and Gemini claws, will now have different life and mana on hit values, since they currently have the same one, and they'll give you a lot more life gain on hit, because 10 to 20 life gain on hit is shit right now. So that's good stuff. The thrusting swords, the Marika thrusting swords, have also gotten a pretty nice buff. They went from 8 and 12% chance to bleed to 15 and 20%, which is pretty substantial. It can definitely, supplement your gladiator or replace your void heart for bleed percent chance on other builds. And they're also going to lower the critical multiplier value of other thrusting swords, so that you do actually potentially choose the bleed one sometimes. So that's good stuff, I suppose. And that sucks that they're lowering the crit multi, but it should balance out with some other sword changes, we assume. The one-hand maces now grant stun threshold at 10 to 15% rather than stun duration at 20 or 40 to increase their ability to stun. So that's good stuff. That'll just mean that you'll be more able to stun things that are harder to stun at this point, but that doesn't really bother me, so that's not a change I care about. And all stars have had their block value increased from 12 and 18% to 18 and 20%. Not too huge, not that substantial, but certainly a little buff there. Almost half the one-handed and two-handed sword-based types now grant flat accuracy instead of increased accuracy. So currently they give something like 18 to 30% increased accuracy as an implicit. Instead, they're going to give something like 400 to 500 just flat accuracy, which is a pretty nice buff for any builds that use those, because that's usually far more substantial than percent accuracy, meaning it's pretty damn good unless you're a juggernaut who was scaling 10,000 accuracy previously. This is going to be a buff. Next up is area of effect changes. In essence, what they're saying here is they're going to be changing the radius shit over here, or things like these and this, to, how do we say this, have been replaced with an increase to area instead of increased radius of area skills. From what I can understand of reading this whole thing and what I can understand of what other people have said, if you don't have much area and you don't take many nodes, so you only take a few nodes, like let's say up to 50%, then and total increased area, then it should be about the same, maybe even a bit better. It's supposed to deter you stacking all the area in the world and then getting more and more gains. So it'll get slightly worse as you stack more and more. So if you take all these nodes on the tree, including the scion and everything possible, you use the gem, you use a carcass jack, you use a dying sun, then it's going to be worse than it was before, because they don't want you to have as much infinite amounts of area. But if you're using little amounts, like just the gem and maybe a node or two, then it shouldn't really affect you too much. So that's just fine, I think. As well as that, they do say that Blight gains +1 area radius every 5 levels of gem, and that'll happen for some other things too, instead of percent increases. So that's probably going to be a good thing. And also some curse stuff, no one really cares. And another notable change, melee splash now gains significantly more increased area than it did increased radius as the gem levels, bringing it much closer to equivalent area skills. So that should be a pretty large buff, and it means that you might be able to use melee splash with a lot more things before now than you did before. Skill balance adjustments. They're going to change quite a lot of stuff to make it feel better, and that's good stuff, definitely. Hopefully bridging the gaps between shit skills and good skills. And currently they're only listing 2 things. So Sunder now deals more damage with its direct hit, but less damage with its secondary area effect. So Sunder travels in a line, does some damage. Now that's going to do more damage. Little explosions out to the side will do less damage. Don't know how that's going to affect me at all. Probably won't use Sunder for an end game skill anyway. Ice Crash has had its damage increased, which is fine, but probably not enough for me to play it for the most part, because Earthquake is still more or less straight up better, and it gets pretty laggy and distracting on screen the bigger area you get for it, so Ice Crash is kind of meh. Damage reduction is going to be applied to a skill that they think is currently overtuned because it's seen very much use, and that's Blade Flurry. Chances are it's still going to be a very good skill and very usable, especially because of the mechanics of it, how you wind it up and then can kill things immediately. That's very good for single target. It really depends on what kind of damage reduction we're talking, but at the same time, there's going to be one-hand weapon buffs, so we might not notice it for most weapons. It might be just fairly noticeable for things like daggers. We'll have to see what kind of a nerf it is. It's still mechanically very strong as far as I can tell. And then 2 Vile Auras have been reduced, which is Vile Haste, slightly lower values, Slightly low usually means not that much, so chances are you'll still be using Vile Haste for your clear speeds and all that. Vile Discipline no longer grants any bonus energy shield though. So currently Vile Discipline gives you, I don't know, on my like 8,000 energy shield character, it gives an extra 4,000, let's say. So that's like a 50% increase, brings me up to 12,000 energy shield. And then it also regens your energy shield, activates your regeneration, which is really nice for defensive buffs. No longer granting any bonus energy shield. That's going to make it obviously a lot worse, but I think still very usable and totally fine. So I wouldn't, cry too much about that. CI builds, energy shield builds are still really good. And the regen portion is probably what a lot of builds use it for anyway. It's just that the additional energy shield takes it to that next level of basically being immortal while it's up, and that's never a good thing. You don't want to be pure immortal, or you don't want skills in a game to make you pure immortal. It's just going to make it more survivable at this stage. I think that's fine. There's going to be more changes skills in 3.0 as part of Fall of Oriath's beta, as they say, and there's going to be some changes to existing threshold jewels. Currently, most of them aren't used, most of them are shit, so they're updating a lot of them, and that's really good. One of the things they're going to update is all threshold jewels now require 40 of their chosen attribute to be available in the area and not allocated, which is a good thing because before, if it said you need 50 intelligence in the area, you'd have to take, all the int nodes around it to be able to get the benefit of it. Instead, it just has to have that int in the area, whether you take it or not, it doesn't really matter. So that's a nice little buff. And then they're going to rearrange or rebuff and remodel some of those gems to or jewels to do different things, and they're going to allocate maximum number of jewels to that type so that they can make them stronger, and you don't have to build into so many of them to make them better. So for example, they have just a few here. Heavy Strike Threshold Jewel now grants 20% chance for double damage, and you can have 2 of them. That sounds pretty good. Viper Strike Threshold Jewel now grants 10% chance to gain Unholy Might on hit per poison stack on the enemy, and is limited to 1. So that's pretty damn good for Viper Strike. Viper Strike combined with the melee splash buffs means it'll be probably pretty usable, and this jewel is really quite nice. That will probably be a 100% sustain of Unholy Might, which is pretty substantial, but still Viper Strike, still melee splash. It might be far less than say a Blade Flurry or an Earthquake. We'll have to wait and see. And then Vigilant Strike's Threshold Jewel now grants allies Fortify for 20 seconds, up from 3 seconds, and you can have 1 of those. That's pretty freaking huge and fairly useful. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll look into Vigilant Strike in the future ourselves, but it's really nice for ally buff for sure. And then the full patch notes and skill tree will come for 2.6 a few days before the launch on March 3rd. That is likely when I'll be able to make a video up for starter builds. Up until then, I'm not sure I can do too much. I'll have a think about it. We'll see if we can maybe pull the trigger. Chances are I'll wait for patch notes, so we're looking at probably about another week, maybe 5 days or some shit, till we can make a starter build video for all this. Everyone is going to also receive a passive reset on your characters on Standard and Hardcore because of so many changes. That's about it. That's all of the changes as far as I can tell. They're all pretty damn good. I'm happy with all of those. There's a few nerfs here or there, but they're appropriate as it currently stands. Your Blade Flurry, your Vile Discipline, they're appropriate nerfs. Let's not get too sad about those, and I hope the game keeps going in the right direction. I think these are all just fine, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we're looking at. Hope you guys are happy with 2.6 balance changes as well, and enjoyed my reading of them. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time.